So, Chris, welcome to our very first podcast, possibly our last podcast, but our first podcast. We don't have a name. Maybe it's the Chris and Paul pod. I don't know
Yeah,
what we're going to call it. But basically, it will be a construction focus on this, heavily construction, involved in construction. So, Chris, I know you for a long time. Anybody who's listening in, the one or two people who was listening in, what what's the where's your where did you how did you get into construction?
Oh, great question. Yeah, it's probably something I think about every day. Long family history of it, I suppose. I think we're the fourth generation, fourth generation anyway in construction here in the west of Ireland. Father, grandfather, his great grandfather were all involved in it. I suppose growing up then that, it definitely wasn't something that was forced upon us. It was there and it always seemed like a well paid, outdoor, enjoyable job. So when the time came to make those calls, you were definitely in our house, we were definitely left to our own devices, but nearly everybody in the family, including a sister, involved in construction, yeah. So something I love.
Yeah.
I think you find a lot of people that get into construction, it's you'll you hear that a lot. It's something they love. It's something they it's not something you take or leave. You get involved and you get more involved and more involved. You changing skills and upgrading and things like that. People definitely find a love for it. Personally, I as you know yourself there, I started off doing a lot of carpentry because I have two brothers qualified carpenters, younger and older, 10 or 12 year gap between their ages. We all worked together, and then the time came to go to do something after school. And I actually done civil engineering. I've done 5 years in between college and university to become a civil engineer. Ran construction projects all over the country, huge ones, the biggest in the country at the time. Worked on them, done that for 15 years, I think. It just came to a point then where I was gone all the time, traveling, because you work, when you get to that level of construction, with experience and being a civil engineer on site. It's larger projects all the time you're working on. If they're not on your doorstep, you're on the road. You're on the road.
They're not going to be local.
No, they don't tend to be. Although I built some really big hotels here locally, wastewater treatment, water treatment, things like that. But they're very much when that project finishes, you're left with a gap. With my own company now, we're actually back working in Turle House Museum. Just started last week doing a fit out, and it'll be one of the first projects I've worked on. And so that cycle has happened now with 3 or 4 projects recently, but they're very back in like 95 to 2001 when I was very, very young in construction, worked on projects that I'm actually back on now. We have another project in Castlebar that we built a pub and apartments, and we have actually those gutted and redone as all apartments now. And that was a job I worked on in 1995. So that cyclist was I'm that age now where the projects I worked on first are back in contention for construction again. So yeah, then I suppose the time came to I had family commitments, things like that. I was travelling the country, and I always wanted to work for myself. It was always the number one goal or mindset I had was to have my own, because definitely to be self-employed construction, to whatever level that came. I don't know if I thought that far ahead.
Yeah.
And then I suppose I realised
I think for you, Chris, from knowing you from, primary school, from 4 years of age, the timing was good for you, that you weren't forced into being self-employed too early, and you had that employment opportunity with big construction companies to gain that experience before you went in and started your own.
Oh, that's been invaluable to me. Yeah. I wouldn't in the modern day climate of setting up a construction company, I definitely wouldn't have been able to do it without the background of the office side of things. The civil engineering, it just would have cost me way too much money to let out stuff like tender document preparation, going through drawings and being able to pick out the pitfalls when you're pricing tenders, definitely for yourself as well, because it just means an awful lot more. It's your pocket at the end of the line.
Yeah, absolutely.
The health and safety side of things, because I'd done so many qualifications. I'd done qualifications in conservation, construction, over all those years, and somebody else is paying for it. Someone else picking up the tab.
Yeah.
I know I walked away at a certain point from a company I was with for 9 years with a lot of knowledge, and a lot of stuff under my belt, a lot of tenders won. I was at that stage I was a senior construction manager, and I was winning projects for that company. That was my role. Was
right.
You were given a project somewhere like e-tenders, or a client who contacted, or a tendering company like a architect or a QS company had sent in a tender pack, we call them, and you to go and win that. And that at that level, that didn't involve just getting a price and sending it in. There's a pack that goes with that to prove your maybe some like pre-qualification, questionnaire. Sometimes it can be simple as that, or you put a pack together, which would be like a book, a document to prove why you should get that project.
Like a CV almost.
Yeah,
that you're selling yourself as you're capable of
carrying
completing
out the project,
this
on time within budget, and then your methodology of how you do it, why you're doing it that way, and things like value engineering at that level comes into this term is thrown around a bit. Value engineering, I suppose, cost savings, or how you could do projects differently, save the project time possibly, and time is money, and money as well, and you could win tenders on that now. Unfortunately, in Ireland, majority of tenders are won on like a lowest cost and you can do it basis.
Yeah.
Not just one or the other.
And do companies tend to go with the lowest cost and then hoping that they can find snags in the and then put on extras?
There's definitely talk of that. Yeah, that'd be something that'd be on the cards with some companies. It's not something I do anyway myself. It's not something. There'd be very, very large companies.
Yeah.
I've worked for. I've done 4 or 5 years. Some of the the top 10 in Ireland as a site engineer and site manager. It's definitely something that's on the cards, I suppose, but it's not something I
so like that. Your route into a construction company would be slightly different from a lot of other people who may have had expertise in one trade, kind of just ended up nearly falling into taking on bigger jobs,
being self-employed.
Exactly.
They would have been self-employed. You get a lot of different trades. Carpenters tend to definitely go for it more so than, we'll say, mechanical or electrical, plumbing, electricians. Block layers, it's definitely, I could think of 3 or 4 companies, local ones, that were block laying background, and a big carpentry push as well. Yeah, but they seem to be the ones to go. Plumbers and electricians not so much. I don't know why, but they never tended to push out. Not that they don't get me wrong. Yeah. But just definitely not as much as carpentry, block layers.
I think with the block lane, and my background obviously was kind of block lane, brick lane. My father had a bit of a flair for the stonemason, and like your own family, the family history of it. I suppose back in the day there was never the expression of multi-trade wasn't being utilised. He was maybe a jack of all trades, but a capable at doing what he was able to do. And I suppose going through school and secondary school, then I was being brought along with him, and obviously went into the block lane, and kind of I really enjoy block lane. I love it. Love the
You did a good name for it. I mean, like, again, we didn't cross paths on construction sites an awful lot, but there's a lot of sites. But I would have always heard you're a good block layer that should what I mean. That kind of thing travels quick in small areas.
I suppose the one thing about construction and the personality type that goes into construction, you're very accountable. And you can't really fraud it. You can't fake it. Like if your walls are not straight, and the roofer that's coming in afterwards is
you're only as good as your last job is probably the most famous tradesman to tradesman saying. What I mean? That's very much it. If you don't believe in that philosophy at the start, you're on a losing streak straight away. Only as good as the last block you laid. The last slate you put on, whatever it is. Because everyone, it's very much so. And you drive around here with like your parents, and they would have known who done each house, which trade's been done. That was an area where Dickie Conaway, that's Dickie Conaway's roof, and that's such very much well known around here that who built what, and it's built, it's there for.
It is,
with the vacant house grants, they're definitely there forever. Houses that we thought were lost and gone and buried under piles of ivy have suddenly re-emerged,
Yeah.
and they're popping their head
So
back up.
that kind of brings us on to where we're at here. So, like I spoke about my father. My father died, and I inherited our home house. And I suppose when you inherited, your family home, it's strange because there's so much kind of, I don't know how you'd say it, this kind
Nostalgia, I suppose. It's not a different thing. Not just
but it's
it's not a history in it, you know.
You love this building, you've got so much, and you want to do something right with it, and sometimes
Preserve it as well, yeah.
even when you go into the house and you're trying to clean out all the possessions, you don't really feel it's yours. Like it's been left to you, and there's a lot of kind of not guilt, but you kind of, for me, the house was vacant because I wasn't really ready to move on with the project and just throw out all of my parents and my stuff, everything's possessions that they had worked for. So that was difficult. And then when you do that, and then eventually it's time to, for me, that house was vacant from 2015.
Which wasn't that?
Isn't that long ago? But
it did need a lot of work. Yeah.
It wasn't ready. It needed money. In 2015, there was no money to be had. Then I waited until I could nearly afford it, and now at the moment, all the materials have gone sky high. So I should have just gone and done something in 2015 with it.
Possibly, but it's hard to call. It's always difficult to say,
But at the moment, I think like the government are under serious pressure with this housing crisis, and they have put together this vacant property grant, which is
a great initiative. It's you just have to drive around the countryside, not that far, to see, houses being, just even at early stages, diggers in ripping the ivy out of the garden and the bushes and the, and exposing what's there to get an engineer or an architect to get a survey done. To see what's happening. But it's great. That's going to be huge if it goes ahead. I know there's very few grants paid out at the minute. So they're discussing earlier on. We might talk about later on, but there's a huge housing stock hidden under brambles and briars and
So what and from you, and this is where with this the kind of the foundation of the idea of the podcast came from me inviting you up, having a look, see if you could give me some advice on relation to the house and what could be done with it. And for me, the amount of information that you had, it was just, mind blowing. Just the advice, and I was thinking, geez, if we could record this is important.
Give away all the trade secrets, Paul.
And I think as well, I'm on a WhatsApp group there, for the vacant property grant. Like there's over 250 people in it, and generally the people who are applying here, they're kind of in the same boat. It might have been an old family property or something like that, but they're not used of employing the services of a contractor, and they don't know exactly what to ask them or what's expected from them, what's expected from the contractor, what is acceptable behaviour nearly for clients and for builders and that, so
I understand where you come from.
So I think maybe if we could that would be something that I'd be
interested to chat about,
to see your perspective on it. And I suppose you've had a few headbanger clients back in the day without
I mean, look, people, there's this like expectation reality. I suppose that's what I call that when I get a phone call. I mean, the phone rings, like especially in the last, maybe year or whatever, 14 months since all this started coming about. Phone rings, you get a phone call, strange number comes up, you get a phone call, you get, a snapshot of what they're thinking or where they're coming from. And you're right, there's a huge, some people are very, very clued in, fantastic, that all the information's online and they can find that stuff. Some people, they're probably further away from the mark. And I suppose we're here to help them through all that. That's the, So I suppose give someone 5 minutes, hear them out. You're going through all that. There's alarm bells when they start talking maybe about too many available grants. They tend to be the ones maybe that are dreaming and maybe a little bit. It's tough to say that, but when they start talking, because we're CI contractors for registered contractors have been for a couple of years now as well. If you start hearing people that straight away it's the 70,000, not the 50, and it's the you can also get another XYZ for this and that, and like they're in their head they're at 100k grants. It's unrealistic. I'm not that. I'm a glass half full kind of fella. You have to be in construction in the west of Ireland. The weather we get, if you weren't, you'd be bloody suicidal maybe or something. I don't know. When you hear that, yeah, that's probably the upper alarm bell. Definitely of
Right.
there's all these grants. There's all these grants. They're probably someone that's sitting on a
Yeah.
And
I have seen one ad for a particular company, an insulation company, and it's like 103,000 grant available here, and that's like the sum total of every single grant that's available. And that's maybe with heat pumps and the full amount of these airtight grants.
And the windows and doors, which are one stop shop only available, stuff like that. There's a lot of, so I suppose there's a lot of knowledge out there online. That's the problem with it. If you Google what if you were sick and you Google what you had, you could find out you'd convince yourself you had cancer within 5 minutes. And that's the problem with the internet. It's all there, and that's great. It's deciphering it, I suppose. And I suppose that's what we're helped to do. When we get a call off somebody, we give them 5 or 10 minutes, whatever it is on the phone, chat. It's very relaxed, very cool. There's definitely no judgments made or anything like that by any means. Find out where the project, property, whatever it is, what stage they're at, and then give them advice. Sometimes it's at that point, we often ask, is there drones and things like that, and that helps us decide if things like how serious they are along the project route.
Yeah.
Because if it's, and then that's, they're giving you little hints all the time, like, oh no, we've just thought about it, or we've only done this, or and then other people say, oh yeah, we've fussed the drawings off XYZ architect engineer, and I'll say, great, get them off to me in a postcode, I'll review them, we set up a meeting. We set up a meeting anyways after that point, and then they're like yourself, which gives an ear code or whatever, we pop up, walk around, very, very casual. The first interaction always is, just go through what your expectations are, and then, after chatting to somebody for 5 or 10 minutes at this stage, I get a good grip of where they are with things and where we are with things. That's when we start offering advice, which is free and doesn't have to be taken by anybody under any circumstances. Or, sometimes the advice is just simply on the phone. I would give people the number of a few local architects or engineers that will do the report or survey for them.
Right.
They're the person they should be meeting long before I'm on the scene, because I would not under any circumstances push ourselves on any client. It's you should go and get 3 prices if you can, or 10 if you can. By all means, price around. It's a open market, and it's open to everybody, not just, so we don't get too heavily involved too early, because they have a lot of bridges to
Should you
cross.
pay a builder for a price?
I mean, have I been messed around personally, my own experience, price and stuff for no reason? Of course I have. Loads and loads and loads of times. That's part of my screening process that I kind of alluded to there, and the questions I ask and the boxes I tick and the buzzwords I'm listening or hearing out for, like super amounts of grant money, like they're alarm bells, red flags, whatever. There's plenty of terms out there nowadays for all these things. I mean, that's just part of your screening process. It's a business, it's a company. We employ a lot of people. We've bills, we've overheads. I can't, not that my time is super precious.
If you're going to spend 3, 4, 5, 6 hours, or if you're going to employ a QS or somebody else, and you're going if you don't have the time to price it, and you send it out, like, they're not going to do it for free. You're
talking about upwards of $650, I think, for a QS per project. Upwards. That's so. We use a few different QS companies. We my sister is a QS as well. I get a lot of advice, from there as well. But we employ maybe 3 or 4 companies that we go to, because there's such a range of projects come in, and different companies we find are better or handy, more used to dealing with us, and then the relationship is really key between you and your QS, so they know, what's going on, because every builder is different. Some builders have their own scaffolding, their own diggers, machinery. It depends on their own background. So, like, if you have a QS pricing for you and you're a carpentry company, they need to know that you can do your carpentry work cheaper than subbing something out, block lane, whatever your background. That's another definitely another day's conversation. But should a builder be paid? Yes, in theory. Is it practical? No. Builders, unfortunately, as well, are not all whiter than white or holier than thou or whatever. You know what I mean? There's just like clients and you know what we spoke about earlier on. You know, you get some headbangers. There's some bloody headbangers of builders out there as well, and tradesmen and no shows and not shows and all those other.
And 3 day weeks.
Yeah, all those other guys are out there. You know, that's their business. Not do it with me. We do our thing. Let them do theirs. Hopefully, we don't cross paths. And
So somebody goes and they get 3 prices and. That's kind of where you're.
So I suppose, so we get the advice out of the way first of all. It needs to be done. It's a bridge that needs to be crossed. You know, tell them the route they need to go.
Yeah. So we had that chat. You came up. You seen the building.
The condition of the property.
It's 100-year-old.
And what your plans were with your extension and stuff like that. Because that's all. It's not just a vacant house that's been exactly restored the way it was. There could be other bigger conservation. You know, topic or issues to sort out. You know, depending where you are as well, what town you're in, or what village or whatever. And then there's extensions, renovate. You know, there's that side of it. And then there's to you know, at that point then you get all that information in. Do you need a drawing or not? Is there planning issues, septic tank issues? All these things come into, you know,
and
at that
the
point.
question you said, like, and what's your overall? What are you going to do with this? Are you going to
What's
live this
plan?
here yourself?
Yeah.
Are you going to rent it out? Are you going to and like that vacant property grant
there's criteria in there.
It does allow for both.
Yeah.
So like
it didn't probably when we spoke
start.
First,
it was only for the owner occupier. Now there's actually you can have.
And it needs to be by right. They're like that in proper order because there's housing price. It's a complete, huge housing price. It's do you know what I mean? Some of the stories I hear recently, people that, you know, being put out at properties for whatever XY reason, you know, whatever reason, you know, families coming back from abroad, which is common. It's happening a lot. People are coming back from England and Australia, especially this part of Ireland. We're a huge exporter of people for years, and people are coming back now because there's a lot of jobs, factories, and different, you know, avenues to work in, and people are getting moved out of their house. There's nowhere to go, you know. No. And we've been seeing that problem. When we take on projects, we often put families out of their house to do the project for them, and it's a huge burden on them to get somewhere. We've often had families changing 2 or 3 times in the course of the year to get accommodation, couch surfing, or you know,
begging, borrowing, and their
and like,
family and friends.
Yeah, proper order these houses are put back in the market. So, advice: we cross that bridge. We send them direction if we can of an architect or an engineer that we use ourselves or are in common contact with. You know, get them to get their derelict, you know, survey condition report done. Then they're asking us normally for pricing. You know, there's a criteria. They need there's a sheet to be filled in prior to the application form. We'll at that stage, if we're still involved, we'll do that for them. There's their all eligible, you know, ability section of it, the forms to fill in, and I suppose then we sit back a little bit. Then I suppose at that point, you know, we play the waiting game that they're waiting. For they contact their county council and they get their application in. And
the form is actually.
That's
it looks fairly straightforward. But it can have its own pitfalls in it when you're going through it, and obviously not everything is covered, and there's certain amounts of. Like it's not just 50,000. There's certain topics there that's been filled in there. So,
but they seem fair. I haven't you know, they do seem fair. The quantity, you know, the size of these houses. Like, don't get me wrong. Now, all houses full of shit. Like people, shapes and sizes are all different. But around here, derelict houses, they're smaller than bungalows. They're probably falling under like 1,000 square foot, or I was going to say like 100 square meters or something. Even they're not big houses, and like 21k for windows. Like, you know, we're building houses 220 square meters at the minute, 250 windows, 25k. So like I mean, just that's one.
But maybe that's a conservation thing where they're looking at.
Oh, absolutely different shapes and sizes for every. But they're not. You know what I mean? You know. It's fair. Like some of them seem crazy, like fascia soffits and rainwater goods 4.2. I mean, like that's a lot of money for a small house, but it's not a lot of money, as you say, for a conservation of a you know, period residence somewhere outside Meath. In a you know, like that's fair to say. But it is, they have to have a system, and they have one. It was a bit rocky at the start, but I mean, down the west of Ireland, the figures, I haven't heard any complaints. Do you know?
No.
At the minute, we have your project, and we have one that's in for consideration. A beautiful thatched cottage, not too far away from where we live, and we've one other project on. They haven't got any payments, including yourself, yet from
No.
the projects aren't at that stage.
I have received my approval letter that I
Yeah.
have been approved for it,
Yeah.
and I've been given 13 months to complete the work,
yeah.
which is, it sounds like it's doable. In fairness, like I think it should be doable, but at the end of
Yeah, it's whether
there's still
there's a huge weather issue there till you get closed in.
Yeah.
It's a lot easier. It's an awful lot easier for timelines on a project once you get the windows in and the outside sealed. It's just
Yeah.
it's night and day until that point, because you're at the
Absolutely.
we had a rough summer of the year in particular.
Yeah, the roof on it was a big one. It was a mistake on my behalf because I had done the roof prior to the inspection. So when the house technically was derelict, and I had done work prior to the inspection. And when the inspection came, it's like, well, this isn't that derelict. Like, there's a roof on it here, and there's there's an extension built at this stage. So, again, like every other.
Yeah, but in fairness, everyone's story is slightly different. Yours was that we didn't go down the derelict or vacant route at the start.
At the start, no, because it didn't. Because it didn't. It wasn't going to be in. The
it was only 30.
village.
Not only 30,000. Yeah, there's the towns.
It had to be the towns or villages.
It was only 30,050 as well.
Yeah.
At the time, the very start. Yeah.
Yeah, so it is interesting, yeah, and like, but some of the advice then that you did give me in relation to the stonework, and it's interesting that there's actually an additional grant now for conservation work.
Yeah.
And I didn't know that you had the conservation qualification and that in relation to it. So what type of
the conservation? You have to, first of all, you have to get a conservation specialist out to do the survey.
Right.
And then she will advise you what routes to go. Okay. So, you again, like, there's a lot of, it's a huge field, and it would you could probably just have a podcast on its own just about that element, but it's a money thing, because to do things.
Is it a money pit?
Conservation.
Is it just like
no, to do things great. No, it's a fantastic way to do things. It's the old way. It's lime render, wall breeds, inside and outside lime. So the wall breeds, so you don't get the damp and the rise and damp. All those issues are dealt with. But there's paints. You can't just seal it up then with Dulux Weatherclad or one of these sealy up paints forever, because you've just eliminated all the good work you've done. So there's certain paints you use then to seal the inside anyway, definitely. Okay. And you don't necessarily have to seal the outside. You can whitewash, lime wash, loads. It's a a huge topic that we won't cover. But the stuff a builder will be looking for straight away is, if the outside's already sand and cemented, are you going to knock all that off and then lime render it when it's already sealed with a...
Can you leave the outside on and the inside?
No, it's a lot. Not really. Like, in my experience anyway, it's a lime. It's lime outside, lime inside. The whole thing works. That's the way traditional old thatch cottages were. Lime wash, all these. Okay. That's the way they were. And they worked, and that's that's why they worked. Whether they knew what they were doing exactly or not, I don't know, or did they happen on it, or what the hell happened hundreds of years ago when they come up with this.
Who knows?
But it worked.
Yeah.
And we unworked it with sand and cement on these buildings.
With the Portland cement. Putting that in.
Yeah, and waterproof.
So that's basically what happened to my...
Yeah. So it's just, it's funding, it's money, it's budgets. So you can rip all that off and go with lime. Lime plaster and then lime render is expensive. There's no two ways about that. It's
horrible.
Depending who you get to do it 3 or 4 times.
It's horrible.
Look, that's.
I've got burns on my hands from.
It has to be handled. It has to be handled correctly. There's no doubt about it. It takes. You have to stay with it. You have to cover the outside of the scaffold. You can't let the wind blow at it. You can't let rain. You have to damp. You have to go back and wet it. I suppose. I've done lime courses. There's some great places. Carlow and Cork. There's 2 lime studios, and they do training and workshops. And I've done them over the years in things like this, these hot limes, which I know we've talked about on site, lime renders and lime painting, and it's in itself is very, very interesting, but a huge learning. You want to set some time apart in your life now if you're going to get into lime and lime works.
Maybe set some time apart in our podcast.
For lime works. But I've done some lime qualification courses and stuff over the years, and some of the best experience I've got was I actually restored one of the oldest bridges, if not the oldest bridge, I think 1798. in Mayo with a stonemason called Owen Madigan, who'd regarded one of the top lime stoneworkers in the country from Ennis in County Clare. The company I was working for at the time very thankfully took the effort and paid the price to get somebody very, very, very good on the project. And I learned probably more about lime in that project than in a lot of any of the courses or anything else and the conservation theory course I done. I learned definitely more on that bridge off that one fella in 2 or 3 weeks. You know, yeah. He mixed hot lime on site, like from he some interesting stuff. But yeah, conservation theory. Conservation specialist report. He'll come back with recommendations. You then have to go to a very reputable contractor if you're going to go the conservation route.
And maybe that's brought to our bus by our sponsor. We don't actually have a sponsor.
Phil sponsor in here.
We don't have a sponsor, but I think today's sponsor is Moran Brothers.
Thanks very much, Paul.
Is that who's sponsoring the show today?
It is.
Considering it's our own time.
It's our own time and effort here, and the evenings after we finish a hard day's work in the rain. You know, I suppose
a reputable contractor. So you
get your reputable contractor. Grab your reputable contractor whoever he is. It's word of mouth is fantastic in smaller towns in the west, southwest, and north of Ireland, where everyone knows each other. You know, you're going to find the good, the bad, and the ugly. It's very transparent. You know, and lime. I mean, it's easy. You know, it's easy to throw out these words and lime this and lime that, and natural slates and sliding sash timber windows, all conservation. Buzzwords. You like sliding sash timber windows are expensive if that's the route you're going down. Yeah. A couple of K, like for a reasonably straightforward sliding sash window, isn't. It's a lot of money per unit versus potentially €500 or €600 for a UPVC. It's that's 300% more expensive. Lime rendering could be 200-300% more expensive. Like that's a lot of money. And natural slates, you can still get a slate for like €110-ish. We're buying naturals at the minute, a good Spanish natural. You can get them 50-year and 75-year, which is the cream top of the range. And I think we have a 75-year, and we're paying €3.45. €3.45 for fibre cement slate. Like, so that again is 250% more, something like that expensive. I'm going to the maths right now. So don't go down the conservation. There's money in it to pay a conservation architect, to get that properly done, that survey done. But be prepared. Okay. But you will have a fantastic building at the end of it. You'll have
it's something that
if done correctly, fantastic. Looks wise, personally, I'm into that type of thing. I suppose people like what you like. Well crafted, traditional cottage with a doesn't have to be natural slates.
But if you buy cheap, do you buy twice?
Not necessarily, but not necessarily. No. I mean, CE marking came in a few years ago as a pain in the arse for builders at the time. Like, we to prove every single product when it came in first. Every single product down to a box of screws had a CE cert. I think 2014, from memory, we restored a courthouse in Galway, and we had to prove every single product we had was CE certified. So there was some issues it felt. I think this is where it came from. Personally, right. I think the market got flooded just before the boom with a lot of crap. And there was definitely felt, for me, was one of the big ones. There was people putting types of felt on roofs and you could see through it. Okay. Never mind anything else. It was coming in at 50, 60 quid a roll, whatever it was just crap. When the time they loaded out the slates, there was holes in it. It perished in all the gutters. Okay. It wasn't fit for purpose. There was some other bad stuff happened as well. Like, we can have definitely another day on that one. But I remember that being very bad product at the time, and then these regulations came in, changed that, B-car and all these other things, which is Building Control Act came in, and C certification was pushed on everyone, which was great, and it weeded out a lot of the crap. Yeah. So I don't think there's bad construction projects. There could be poorly made construction projects and products by accident. We had to take a house, remove all the floors in it before for the insulation failed.
Really?
But there are no bad.
Wasn't. Yeah, but no,
we can't name the name anyway.
Yeah, but in fairness, you can't
The
really go
insulation
too far
failed.
away from.
But it was a production. It was found to be a production. They left the quantity of water in it too long in the manufacture, and over time it
in
weakened.
Mayo, Donegal, and Clare, like when you're on about
Mica.
building control failing and or
Mike, I don't know. The Mica one is funny. I'm getting a backlash of clients at the minute because we've had to increase our prices in September since concrete's gone up. Quarry products, the percentage went to quarry products across the board. Our prices have gone up. We've had to go back to our not live projects.
Okay.
We've suffered the cost on that.
Yeah.
We're doing a project, no matter what stage it's at, we've suffered the cost on that completely. But projects that we would have priced 6 months ago that have taken a little bit of time to get to from the tender stage to win the tender, and now our quotes only last so long. And every builder, and if you go into one of the big suppliers, builders suppliers, their quotes only last a tiny period of time. But at the minute, like we had a project, for argument's sake, you priced it in August. You came back, they said you've won the job at the end of August. By September, the pyrite, the mica increased costs has come on the quarry products. So now if you're going to site, costs gone up. We've one project 6 or 7k, it's gone up. Who pays that?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? The client does not want to pay that under any circumstance on a particular project we're doing. We don't feel we should be paying it.
Yeah.
The government have decided that this is the way it's going to be dealt with, and that's that. Mike,
because I suppose because a client only has a certain amount of finite, kind of finance available.
Everyone has a budget. That's I mean, from the outset,
It's hard for the client to be able to go back to the bank when they've completely.
And before you start and looking for an increase, and Bill, I can tell you my own point of view from my own integrity. I hate that. I'd rather take the hit. If I price something wrong or I made a mistake myself, I'd personally take the hit and say, you live and you learn, and it's every day is a school day.
Yeah.
You keep going, but that
stability in pricing at the moment, it's really hard for anyone taking on a project. And I'd say that there's a lot of people who are just going to back off a little bit and just wait.
There's a lot of people,
for the time.
There's a lot of people. There's a lot of people.
The mortgage, the
interest rates.
The cost of interest rates gone up so much in the last while.
And materials cost, and then as well, labour costs are creeping up too because there's less and less, younger people going into construction, so all those costs are going up. Yeah, it has exploded construction at the minute. Construction costs at the minute, to the point where, younger people are being kind of priced out of the market of building.
Yeah.
And we what we tend to see tenders coming in now are definitely an older generation. People that are building on or upgrading the house. Houses, just like cars, need upgrading. There's definitely no doubt about that.
And every house needs work done on
needs
every
work done to some degree. Like even if it's a roof every 20 odd years or 30 years, whatever you get out of it.
Or you just paint it every 5 years or whatever it is.
Yeah. So there's and then like plumbers, electricians, tilers, bathrooms. They're like no offense to it's probably the first thing that jumps out if you go into an older house is a rotten bathroom.
Yeah.
Tiling and
the green
sanitary
bathroom.
ware, a brown toilet, like this one in this house right now. But that kind of thing. Yeah, so there's always that type of construction. But the projects we're definitely getting in for tender at the minute. Do a lot of government and commercial and stuff like that. Anyway, we always did. But I would have always done that type of work anyway. And we do probably 50% domestic construction, what we call houses or house bash. And there's lots of different terms on it. But the clients we have in the housing are all older.
Okay.
Clients. It's 50 up.
Right.
We're building 2 houses for what I call young people, and they're 40 something. 40, wow. Right? And then we have no clients under 40.
So what are the younger people going to do for housing?
We have young staff. We have apprentice carpenters that have just finished their apprenticeship, and not that many. Wish we had more. They're not coming into construction. We have 3, and in mid-20s maybe, and it's just not an option for them. House ownership is not an option. It's just they will not, because you have to. Essentially, what's happened is you have to be married and settle down, have 2 incomes, solid, and potentially a child in the way, but not actually a child in the way, because that's another.
That's it. Yeah.
Reduction in the amount of money you can borrow. But be at the stage where you're just about to have a child, but don't have one.
Don't have the dependents.
And then don't have any dependents and no car loans or anything like that.
Don't be thinking of going to Australia for a year.
Yeah, you're not doing that, no. And be settled down. So that, I suppose, in life, even you know, people in my parents' time get married in 1920. In my time it was 30.
Yeah.
Now I'm going to weddings, they're 40.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, life shifting around a bit. But these guys at 25, like when I built my house, I was at 25. That's not an option for them.
No.
They're not going to get the funding in place because they need to be too settled down.
But
it's a lot to ask.
The cost of building a new house now, like
Yeah.
you really are looking at over 350,000 euros, like to be looking at.
Depending on the size of a job, definitely, yeah. Like, I mean, that'd be a small enough house now for 350 at the minute, yeah.
Huge outlay, you know, for somebody who has.
But you're not going to get it from one person. The reality of that is one person. Definitely, like, again, this is very the East Coast, rural, I suppose. Maybe I'll start calling it rural. I shouldn't be necessarily calling it, you know, West Coast, not fair to say on that. But rural, you know, where the money earner, you know, the potential to earn isn't as maybe high as in cities. You know, a guy or a girl on their own is just not going to qualify for 350k, and that's optimistic enough now, 350k to build a family home. You will build a small house, no doubt. And is that good enough for most people's uses? Probably is. Family sizes are smaller. You know, there's definitely a case saying that people are keeping up with the Joneses, where you have to go over 200 square meters per house just because you're in the countryside. The houses don't need to be that size. Families are smaller, you know.
What I can't understand though, and I live in Crossmolina, and I'm looking at Crossmolina, fantastic town, absolutely brilliant people, North Mayo, 2 fantastic secondary schools. There's no employment, but what it's got the potential. You could, with 2 roads, you could double the size of the town. 2 roads and 1 bridge. You could double the size of that town, free up maybe 500 acres, and put in a proper good kind of open up that land and allow.
Estate housing you're on about, which is definitely going to be the future, you know, of affordability.
Well, maybe it's not estate housing, but maybe it's a bit of future planning and saying, like, you know, we need a swimming pool, we need an athletics track, we need you know, we
town
need
planning,
more stuff going on. But because I don't see that happening anywhere really. You know, you're still developing, like the building that went on in 2010 was all developer led. It wasn't kind of government led, if you know what I mean. It was it was because there was so much finance available and credit, and you had all these German banks flooding the market with money. You know, they were building 85,000 houses, but there didn't seem to be a whole pile of. You know, we didn't need 85,000 houses.
Maybe not then, yeah.
But and then to go and turn off the switch, you know, or turn off the tap of supply.
So many people left the country. It kind of had the knock on was that an awful lot of people left anyway.
Yeah.
After that, because you know what I mean. What you're talking about makes perfect sense. You know, infrastructure is the big one first of all. That has to be, you know, obviously in place. Towns like Westport, they're after getting that new road in, and big, you know, the multinationals that are in Westport, which are a few. You know, you need those.
But you are looking at that employment. You also have to build it around in employment and people.
Infrastructure and employment.
These employment,
these
big companies to come in here and commit to a certain town. And
which Ireland aren't bad at. I don't disagree. You know, they do a lot of things wrong, but their corporation tax, things like that, definitely they're on the, you know, IDA and all these, like they're definitely proactive in getting foreign investment and companies in. But the problem is, you know, we're talking about something that's beyond our pay grade to a point in that, you know, infrastructure has to come in. Is there enough people to work in those? There's a huge crisis down where we in the part of Ireland we're in anyway, in West of Ireland, in Mayo, of not enough staff. Every single business at the minute, including the guards,
including teachers, including nurses,
recruitment issues,
including every single everything.
Huge recruitment issues. So having these multinationals in the west of Ireland is great if they can staff them. Yeah, that's the other. You know what I mean? And building these roads.
That's going to be a wider
swimming pools. So it's beyond our definitely my pay grade anyway. If something, you know, that's maybe some job for the CSO and all these other places to you know, that's why you do statistics to try and plan these things. However well they work, that's another issue.
You're more on the macro.
Yeah, unfortunately.
Or is it the micro,
I'd say.
Whichever it is, yeah.
I'd imagine it's micro. Yeah, like all I can do is deal with, you know, what I suppose the stuff that's put in front of me. But estate housing is definitely a big solution to younger people getting on a property ladder and affordability, because it's size. As a state house is a lot smaller than your typical country pad. You're not seen to be keeping up with the Joneses, so you don't mind buying one. It's seen as a stepping stone, so people will buy them and say, "Well, this is a stepping stone. It's what I'm starting." And that tends to lead on to the older client that we'd have upgrading, going to a bigger house or a country house or that type of thing. My brothers and sisters would have all done that before they built in the countryside. They all owned a house in Castlebar. Actually, both of them, all in Castlebar, before they built, in the countryside, because they were having kids and they wanted a bigger house, a bit more freedom outside. All these other things that come into it, gardens and areas for the kids to play and not cars, that kind of thing. So, yes, estate, but there's a big issue. There's a huge issue at the minute with developers. It's not cost effective to build houses even in estates at the minute. No. That's a big issue. I know.
And is that leading off from the C stamp? For all of the standards in building.
No, I don't think so. The standards need to happen. I don't necessarily know, and I don't think so. I think it's just at the minute it's this Ukraine war, the cost of diesel, the production. It's not. There's no one thing. It was like a perfect storm since COVID, as far as I can say. This is my take on it. Again, personally, our views on this. Since COVID, there's this been perfect storm where materials got hard to get, production stopped in a lot of cases because the factories were not producing. They couldn't have staff in, and they went to rotas and all this different. Materials got hard to get, and then as soon as materials had the potential to come back to site, the war in Ukraine, we were told, hit, and fuel costs went through the roof, and gas prices, sending gas from Russia to Spain and stopped, and embargoes and all these different things started happening, and the cost of materials went through the roof. And it's only recently we've seen,
and don't forget interest rates,
and then interest rates,
as well.
European Central Bank are popping 0.25% every whenever they
3 months.
And that's push. Personally, my mortgage is nearly doubled. Now I had a tracker since 2008. I can't complain, I'm told, or not to complain, or at least, as my mother said, the only place I'm going to get sympathies in the dictionary and go to S. That's a good place to start. So I had it handy or good for a few years, but by God, I'll tell you now, I don't. It's completely, our mortgage is completely doubled, more or less. But it doesn't help things,
Yeah. We're pushing on now.
Are we?
Yeah. I think I like. It's amazing. We were just sitting down. We're shooting the breeze. I don't know. I haven't put a timer on it to see how far we're gone in.
Yeah.
We're only just touching the
bit of an introduction, I think, this evening, Paul.
An introduction, and to see where it is. There's so many topics there that we could start. Because when I was starting thinking, okay, what would we talk about? Okay, we could talk about roofing. We could talk about.
I'd like to talk about topic by topic.
We could talk about the construction types, the different wall types, or the
I think we should,
those.
For sure,
we could do plumbing. We could do electrics. We could do all the kind of future proofing, the smart homes.
And there's the things to ask all your trades. But there's the two routes. You have a builder, and you can ask him all your questions. And if you're self-build, you have to ask all these individual tradesmen all their individual questions as well. And we could definitely that's a whole. I know from clients, there's so many questions. Like they're always asking me, what questions are you going to ask me when the electrical work starts, when the mechanical plumbing work starts, when all these, even as simple as setting out the blocks on the first day, and people wanted to move an internal wall slightly, like it starts there after the foundation is in. That's when the question starts.
The moment anyone sees the first line of blocks going down, everyone screams and goes, "It's so small, it's so small."
The raft looks big, the foundation looks big, and the blocks make it look small.
And then they look small, and then the volume.
And then they want to start moving walls. The utility's not big enough. The utility's too small. The downstairs bathroom's not big enough. The downstairs too small. And you move those things, you accommodate those things inside because they're not planning issues. And we do our best with clients. We try and mark out, depending the weather conditions, try and mark out the walls before we go too mad, especially if it's a raft.
I've seen a few people going along with a rake on the beach,
marking them
measuring tapes and
there's a company, I think I see them on Instagram, and they plot out your whole house in a 3D room.
Really?
You can walk each room.
Walk through,
yeah.
And you get
full size
idea,
plans,
and you know
full
exactly.
size scale plans. And
What, is it like in a gymnasium? Or
so
how
the
is it
big
like?
room, yeah, they have a big hall or room or whatever, and everything. The whole plans are just and very much like plans with the measurements and everything. It's literally your
Yeah.
plans put into
Projected down onto the floor
Yeah.
and that, yeah.
Yeah.
All right, yeah.
now. I don't know how much they cost, like everything,
Yeah,
you know.
interesting, yeah.
Yeah. No, there's no. I think myself personally, it's going to see other houses. Is the you know, it's a great way to get perspective of what you need or what you think you need. You know. Yeah. There's a whole.
And then that.
There's there's a very much. You asked me earlier on, or we first spoke up at your own house, what the long term plan was. That's a question I ask every client at the start: is who's living in this house?
Yeah.
What are you going to do in it? Because it affects your type of heating, lighting, size of rooms, amount of rooms, all those things. And that's for extensions, renovations. Even if we're just renovating a house without building one block,
Yeah, yeah.
it's
Being future proof, and I suppose everyone's getting
Yeah.
older. You have to think about when you're 70 and 80. Now
exactly
we're-
downstairs bathrooms and bedrooms and things like that for down the line. That at least put the services in for, do something to not have to rip the whole house apart when you're 65 or something like that.
Yeah.
And again, even heating and stuff like the levels of insulation you put in. Like people are working from home and they're going to be in the house all day,
Yeah.
and that's now their office, and they should have, and you know that house needs to be warm and energy efficient because they're going to be in it all day. And there's still an awful lot of people that the whole house is empty from 10 to 8 in the morning till 10 past 6 in the evening, and heating that thing all day long, you know, with nobody in it, you know, like I don't think anybody training the heating system like with air to water, it might be run anyway, and it's, you know, potentially efficient if there's no heat loss. But you know, there's all those questions that
There's a million.
ask.
There's a million episodes really that you can go into it.
Yeah. I think the idea topic by topic, you know,
Yeah.
maybe start at the ground up, you know.
And then I suppose, but the other side of that is that you'll have people who are further along, or maybe
On
people,
the second or third build, yeah.
or maybe or maybe just you know living in the house and they've been in it for the last. They're looking for an extension, or you know they're maybe slightly different, or somebody's looking at doing a kitchen refurb or the bathroom
Yeah.
remodel or something like that. Yeah, so there's lots of different things. You know, I think if we would just to start at, you know, the natural, okay, like.
Maybe getting a builder involved even.
If we went, so like your first interaction with
With the builder, yeah.
with that builder, with the architect,
And
with
not to give him a deposit.
the design.
Number one rule. Yeah. Absolutely, yeah.
No builder's deposits
Don't give a builder a deposit, no.
until the contractor is signed or
Until, like, I mean, like, there's a bit of two-way faith in it, like, you know. Builders, you need to get paid, keep the show on the road.
I've seen a
The UK love deposits. And I can see a
interesting-
booking deposit, like, it makes a lot of sense. You know, if people flake out on you, the builder is at a big loss. There's no doubt about that. But, you know, people mightn't see it, but like a week in construction with 5 or 6 guys working for you,
yeah.
not at their full potential, is a lot of money. And a builder can't carry that. So that's...
Well, you can't
that's-
carry it too many times
No,
a year.
No,
Yeah.
can't. So, but the only thing is around the type of work we do not have an awful lot of projects where there isn't an architect involved. That means we have a contract
Okay.
with a third party administering
Yeah.
the contract to both the client would be the potential, the homeowner occupier normally, and ourselves. So that gives us a great level of comfort. So we don't need
And the homeowner, but he's paying
Yeah.
for it.
Absolutely. Yeah.
He's paying for that.
But the cost of that spread across a project, like the again, the architect would be normally using a builder he's worked with before us, whoever, and he has that level of assurance that we're going to, you know what I mean. And then the way the contract's structured is like there's a percentage taken off for.
Would we invite any guests onto the show if we were to keep going?
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's loads.
So the likes of that, the likes of the architect,
Yeah,
or
see,
the
and
interior
their view on
designer,
it,
or the
Yeah.
whatever, let's see,
Yeah.
or the
Plumbers and electricians. I mean, like
the
there's
SEAI experts and that type of stuff, and that,
So we're SEI contractors. We're definitely not experts. And BR assessors. You know what I mean? It's just all those people are there. They're there for a reason. If you don't engage with them, it's only going to lead to problems. Do you know?
Okay.
Like we will not do a project. You know, like you need to be your report. Like that's just part of the tender documentation. Like really, like if you're upgrading a building, like you know, just like a planning permission document, you ask for these things. If you don't get them in a tender, you know, or if you're pricing, your PC, you're just putting provisional cost in to cover those things, and the client is at risk because they're going to have to pay more if the spec changes or goes up. You know, that's the reality of it. And things like insulation are very, very expensive. There's no point after the fact, or after the contract, you know, maybe the contract might be signed, but after you're selecting your contractor based on price and ability, really, is the two kind of things. You know what I mean? So like if you take one of them away, which is not having proper tender documentation, you're just, you know, you're leaving it at the goodwill of the contractor, which is not the right thing to do. Like, so.
Yeah, well, it's naive at best.
Yeah, and even if you know them, unfortunately, like, you know, it's just not going to work out well. I'm just afraid, like, it is going to be, you know.
And like this is the other thing. If you get a friend to do your work, and you know you're going to get them, or let's say it's a family member, you know you're going to get them, like you still nearly need to go and have the respect for them to get another 3 or 4 prices that you know what is acceptable for them and what's acceptable for you as well.
Friend, that term friend, like, you know, friend, like there's levels of, all different levels of friendship, and like, you know, it's a business for people, and like sometimes, you know, they go in to think they're doing you a favour, and sure, you know, they could be the most expensive tradesman in the area, and you don't know, and you've let yourself wide open. And there's other people, and we get projects, like several projects we've done, where I get a phone call of someone and I'm thinking, sure, your man's brother-in-law's a builder, or your man's wife's husband is a builder, and I was thinking, why, you know, you're potentially going, why are they not ringing him and ringing me? It's because they don't want to go to that person, you know, and to fall out with them,
potentially
over
out
cost.
with somebody over
because they'll get it hard to ask them for a price at the start. They'll end up getting them to do the job, and they'd have to pay whatever they say at the end. So that quite often happens to us when we're building for people that are very, very close relation in the family, a builder or you know, and that's just and we'll ask them, you know. I'm all about transparency, because you as well know at the start and the finish, but why aren't you getting X, Y, Z, or is everything all right, or am I stepping on someone's toes here, or just ask the question, like. But it's very common not to just because there's a friend, as you say, a friendship or a relationship, not to use that person,
family member or something like that.
They don't like, they don't fall out with them. They'd like to keep the, you know. It happens, absolutely happens. It happens a lot, you know.
I think we're going to call that the end of episode number 1 on our podcast.
Great.
Whether there'll be an episode number 2 or not is up to be. Maybe we'll put this out there and see if there's any people are interested in it or anything like that. I definitely know there's huge amount of potential topics for other podcasts or other episodes. So I suppose till we meet again.
Thanks very much. Yeah, it was nice. Enjoyed it.
Chat to you later.